How's it going, OFPs? And welcome to another episode of the Off-Field Players Podcast. I'm your host, Philip Hall, and I hope everybody is having an awesome winter break. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Boxing Day, and a Happy New Year, as by the time this episode goes up, it will already be 2023. But I just want to start off with welcoming my first informational interviewee to the Off-Field Players Podcast. I mean, he's an awesome guy. I met him through the NASCAR Diversity Internship Program this past summer, and he's definitely been making strides in his start as an off-field player working in the sports industry, and he's going to tell all he has going on for him today. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Off-Field Players Podcast, Mr. Jimmil Hawkins. How you doing, man?
Doing great, man. I'm glad to be here, man. Glad to be the first guest of the informational part of your podcast. And this is pretty awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you again, man. And there was a bit of technical difficulties, but we're gonna get that straightened out this go. But yeah, Jimmil, if you could just touch a little bit more on your backstory, where you're from, where you went to school, and just what you've been able to do so far as an off-field player and as you progress through your career in the sports industry.
Yeah, so I was born at the turn of the century. No, I'm not going to start that early. But, I'm from Columbus, Georgia, which is a medium-sized town. If you know where Auburn University is, then you can find Columbus is, down the interstate, right? On the border of Georgia and Alabama. And, I grew up with a military family. And like I tell people always have that shocked look on their face where they're like, man, that must have been tough. And I'm like, not really, They're pretty chill people, So, the military, I think post-military life chilled them out a little bit. I think maybe I was born during their years, maybe not. But, we always, as a family, we would watch movies and stuff like that. And I think that's where my love of, sports and car racing and all that kind of started was, we watched, movies that had to do with car racing and stuff like that. And all I wanted to do when I would go to Blockbuster or Video Warehouse, that's an old name. If you understand what that is, then kudos to you. I'll always go rent any game, Burnout, Need for Speed, and NASCAR, of course, NASCAR 2005, Chips for the Cup.
All of those growing up.
Yeah, exactly. They're the best games, Fun fact about me, I own every NASCAR console game from NASCAR 2000 all the way up to NASCAR Heat 4. So a bit of a nerd when it comes to that. That started my love of NASCAR around 2006. And, I started watching as a full-time fan. And 2007, went to my first race in Atlanta. Jimmy Johnson won that. Jimmy Johnson also won majority of the races I've been to. So that's also a thing. But, went to those races and through my childhood, got a chance to go to Daytona, got to go to Talladega. And because those were the three closest tracks to where I lived, those three. And, we did that all the way up to I was 13. But then once I started going to high school and got more involved in marching band and stuff like that, which was my first really competitive outlet that I did, because I didn't really play sports that much growing up. I played basketball, wasn't too good at it. I was a small center, I can tell you that. They told me to stand under the basket and get rebounds because I wasn't that good. So I did marching band for 4 years, but I limited my time of going to sporting events. I'd catch the occasional Atlanta Hawks game here or there, but didn't really get a chance to go to much of the races. So I went through high school and graduated and had a band scholarship actually to go to Tuskegee University, which is one of the most prestigious black universities in America. And we ran into money problems. I'm not going to get into specifics too much, but I would say we ran into money problems and I had to go back home to Columbus and went to Columbus State University, which is a great university, D2 Peach Belt University, and good education there. Went there for pre-law because, when you go to college, you want to have something that you can fall back on, right? And I think pre-law degree, right? If this crazy world of sports gets shut down again for something, then I can go back and doing a regular job. So then, speaking of getting shut down, COVID happened, and that happened during the middle when I was in college. And everything was shut down. All I did every day was play iRacing as I had my setup here. And, you know, I was bored and I would just watch YouTube videos. I would watch F1 TV literally every day because there's nothing to do. And then I came across, like, you know, guys like David Land and other YouTube journalists. And I was like, you know, why don't I start to do that? And so I reached out to a friend, Will Knight, actually, who wrote for this publication. Me and Will actually met playing F1 2019 on Xbox in a league together. And so I asked him about the publication he wrote for. He said, yeah, they're hiring. They need an American writer for IndyCar. I'm like, cool. You know, I also like IndyCar as well, so I'll do that. And when I got the job, they're like, yeah, this is great and all, but actually we want you to write for NASCAR instead. But I'm like, even better. I know more. I know more about that. So, like, let's do it. And that was fun. We did podcasts. We wrote articles. Podcasts didn't really last that long, but it was a lot of fun. And then around December, our publication started getting bigger and better. And around January and December-ish, we got invited to NASCAR Media Day and got NASCAR Media credentials, which was probably one of the best moments of my life as a childhood NASCAR fan, of always trying to figure out how can I get into the sport, right? And I hate when I go on Reddit or Facebook or something like that, and you see young kids will be like, how can I get into the sport? And they're like, you know, around the 10, 11 age, and you have people grown, like, adults telling them, like, yeah, man, there's no way you're going to make it. And it's like, you can't tell people that, man. I'm the eternal optimist, even to my own fault, right? But I feel like, you know, this year showed me, like, if you really put the work in, like, you can get there, you know. A perfect example is Rajah Karuf, who iRacing to stardom, right? You know, and he started at like 15. So you can get anywhere. So, you know, I'm doing these interviews, and, you know, my first media day interview was with Brad Keselowski. It was actually a Team Penske event, and it was so cool. One of the best moments of my life, because it was so personable, because Brad Keselowski, if you know him, he's the kind of guy that would say an interviewer's name, it would really get deep and personal with you. And he's like, yeah, man, that's a great question, Jimmil. And I was like, man, I geeked out after the Zoom call ended. I was like, this is so cool. Because, like, of course, like, Media Day in 2021 was still on Zoom, you know. COVID still, like, literally just last year. So everything's still on Zoom. So I didn't get a chance to go down to Daytona or Charlotte where they have Media Day to actually do it live. But we did that. Got to interview great drivers such as, like, Kurt Busch. Got to ask him a question about how much he really wants to beat Kyle, and that made him chuckle. Really gave him a good laugh. And
sure, I always would, you know, brother battle.
Yeah, exactly. So that was pretty good. And, you know, we got to interview Ryan Newman, or at least talk to him. And, you know, what I wanted to do in those interviews, you know, because you have Claire B. Lang, you have Bob Pockris, you have Nate Ryan, and I know I'm forgetting someone big. Gluck. You have Jeff Gluck. And they're always asking the questions that you expect. And, you know, I just want to ask questions that, like, not like anything like dumbfounded, but I want to ask questions that, like, I'm pretty sure these guys never heard before, because I was a new journalist, and, you know, I want to ask them something that's fresh and new, and I think I succeeded in that. And my favorite part about the Media Day interviews was getting to interview, like, drivers at the lower part of the field, the Quinn House of the world and stuff like that. And I wanted to do more opinion pieces on those guys. Not opinion pieces, that's not the right word. Get to know pieces, like, because at that time, you know, our publication was mainly dominated as a Formula One publication. Our guys were mainly from Europe or South America, and their main focus was WEC or F1. And I'm like, if we're going to branch out to this NASCAR thing and really make it more popular, well, we have to, like, everyone knows who the F1 backmarkers are. You know them. You know their lives. You don't really know who Quinn Houff is at the time. So I want to do more, like, pieces on that. Even, like, Ross Chastain, who was still, you know, I got to interview him. He was still coming up before he became the Hell Melon man that he is now, right? So, like,
before it went viral.
Yeah, exactly.
That passed in Martinsville.
Yeah. So, I wanted to, like, get to know pieces on those guys. And my publication I was writing for was just like, I don't know about that one. Let's just write about stats. They just wanted to write about more, like, stats of what the guy's stats are instead of their story and their background. And I'm like, I mean, you can't get the guys like personality through stats. You just can't do it, right? So I ended up leaving that publication, kind of on a bad taste in my mouth, but nothing but love for those guys now. And I had a month of sitting there, like waiting, like, oh, what am I gonna do? You know, I'm still in school, but I also want to like do something, especially with COVID happening. I'm a very introverted kind of person, and so I wanted to get back, and I was still taking classes online, so I wanted to get back where I was forced to be around people. So
I got you.
Yeah, you get it. Like, I wanted to be around people.
We're like, you know, I spent a whole year like on camp, like off campus at home, like during that was my sophomore year actually, and you know, it did feel like you wanted to be around people at some point. I mean, it's just you just always have that itch to want to go back to school, and you know, since you know, and you graduated last year.
This year.
This
in May.
This year, excuse me.
May. Yeah. So
I'm sure you know you kind of think about like trying to get those years back for college that you weren't able to have because the pandemic was going on.
Yeah. So that's a great point. And so I decided to apply to the Columbus Chatt-a-Hoots, which were a baseball team starting up in Columbus. Columbus, Georgia, didn't have a baseball team for over 12 years at that time. I think the last one was 2008. So 2020 was the inaugural season.
Yeah, I think didn't the Braves have a minor league affiliate down there at one point?
Yeah, the Braves minor league affiliate was like a team from like the 70s, almost. Yeah, I think like whoever the team in 08 was affiliated with was like a team that wasn't even like close to Georgia, to be honest. So it was kind of weird the way things work out like that. But so I started working with them, and I was doing, you know, editing a lot of like walk-on songs for the baseball players. I was doing a lot for that team. I was like a pregame DJ at one point. I was also like doing stuff in the office from time to time. I would edit, you know, sound clips or commercials for them. Even making video commercials for them as well, like editing together on Adobe Premiere. Also worked tickets, and Walker worked in the merch store during the game. Which I preferred. You know, a lot of people, if they were interning with a team like that, they would kind of want to see the action in the baseball. I didn't. I'm not the biggest baseball guy. So I was like, all right, you can stick me in the ticket booth or the merch booth. And, you know, so it's funny because it was only a summer that I worked for. It was like a summer baseball kind of thing, but it felt like one of the longest periods of my life. I don't know why. I guess because the games were like so back to back, it just felt like I was always there at that field. But it was so fun. A lot of good connections made there. A lot of... you know, good people who worked at that team and stuff like that, which transitioned into my second thing with Ignite Sports, the parent company of those teams, and worked for the Columbus River Dragons, which is a hockey team in the FPHL, Federal Prospects Hockey League, if you don't know, because you probably don't, because it's the lowest league in America. And I did that, and I came in as, you know, working production. So I initially started off with me being on camera, like filming stuff, which I was like, I didn't mind. I love filming stuff. That's what I did in my part-time. And then it transitioned to like, hey man, do you like to produce a game or direct? And I directed the game, and I produced the game, and then I started producing and directing a little bit more when our main producer wasn't there, when I had to go to like Mississippi or something like that. And we had neutral site games and stuff. So when we had to travel and go to an away game, I went with them, you know, and we would get in a van. Like the neutral site games were fun. We would get in a van, and like a black Ford van, and about like all of our production guys stuck in a van and drive to Mississippi, do a game, and drive right back to Georgia the same night.
Were you with the players in the van too? Or?
No, so the players were in a bus. Now, I did get a chance to travel with them in the bus. We went to Winston-Salem for an away game where our regular producer couldn't go, so I was in for him. And so that was, you know, local hockey on a bus, so I think you can expect the shenanigans that go on there. It was crazy. I'll never forget it, man. We got on the bus around like 12 a.m. at night, and like I'm on like this bottom bunk. Like they're all bunk beds. So like I'm on this like,
the
bottom
12 bunker.
bunk. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm on this bottom bunk, and like I can feel the rumble strips of the road anytime the bus driver kind of goes off the road.
Ugh.
And I was
Yeah,
like,
especially
oh man.
like especially when you're driving that late too, and you just
Yeah.
because or actually had experience one time where I was doing the cross country road trip with my dad, and we were driving through Nebraska, and and I was driving, so I was middle of Nebraska, like nothing but cornfields, and you drift off to the side, and you feel those boom, boom on the tires.
Yeah.
Especially driving that
exactly.
late too. I mean, I could understand how the driver felt.
So yeah, no, that was fun. That was a good experience. Shout out Coach Jerome Bouchard, Boom Boom as they call him, because that trip I didn't go on many away trips, but like that one he really treated me like I was one of the players. So he'd be like, "Hey, if you're hungry, you come to this restaurant with us. If not, we'll just leave you." But like in a loving way, So like we would go to, I think we went to this bar and had like spaghetti and salad and stuff. Like really treated me like one of the players, and it was pretty cool. And going up there to Winston-Salem, which is Wake Forest is there, but like they love their hockey up there as well. So that was a fun experience. Working for the River Dragons was cool. Local hockey is intense fans, man. Very intense.
And I remember when we first met, and you were telling me about when you worked for the River Dragons. I mean, like I was kind of surprised, like how big hockey was even in the South. I mean, I thought, because you think about like the way the NHL is set up. I think the only teams in the South right now is like the Tampa Bay Lightning, Florida Panthers. You got Carolina Hurricanes, and like Nashville Predators. And I was just thinking, you had a few handful of NHL markets, but no, minor league hockey apparently was is huge down there. I mean, I was surprised.
It is, and some of the best experience I had with that was, we went down to Mississippi for a neutral site game, and it sold out. I mean, 9,000 people. Like, I was like, dude, this is so cool. Like, I was like, I never expected to see a full house like that in an arena for minor league hockey, especially how low level it was, too. And I'm saying low level compared to, like, it's just low on the NHL's totem pole, but those guys are good, I know some really good guys. Marquise Grant Mentis, he's one of the few like African American, or no, he's not American, he's Canadian. One of the few African Canadian players that played in the league as well. And me and him still talk from time to time. And he's a cool guy. And those guys are skilled; they're really good. And so that was a good game. We had a military night because Columbus is a military town with Fort Benning Infantry School, just south of there. We had like 6,000 people that night. Ooh, man, it was rowdy. It was great, very loud, and just to have that many people in the Columbus Civic Center was so cool, and such a great experience. Those guys, Zach, who was our play-by-play guy last year, who is now, I think he does something with Arkansas radio for football, so he's moving up in the world as well. So those guys were so great. They were such a good team. We were all still close. I'm still in the Discord with those guys where we just talk and, about anything. So it was a great time. And I kind of got sad when the season was ending. I didn't want the season to end because we made it to the championship game. It was a 3-game series versus the team in Watertown, New York. And we lost. And I really wanted that ring really bad because they won the championship the year before. Columbus did, and everyone that was the staff on the team before had rings, and I was like, I want one, and so close. It was also funny. The Chatt-a-Hoots the year before also finished second, so I didn't get it was like 2 second place teams I worked for back to back, so that was pretty funny. But then fast forward, so December of last year, as you know, NDIP started their advertisement of who wants to apply for this. And I actually applied the year before. I applied the year before and got denied. But no hard feelings. But
I think like I applied the year before too. That was what was that? Actually no. Because because I remember sophomore year, and I think they did it. But that was like still when COVID was still kind of going on, so I think they only still like the few. But I think we had the largest class of interns, from what I can remember.
Yep, yeah. And so I remember applying for that, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna apply for it again, but I'm gonna apply under production because that's what I'm doing now. I'm producing and directing for the River Dragons. I really fell in love with it and doing this. And that's something I've always been into. I used to make stop motion YouTube videos with my toy NASCARs on the floor of my house. Editing has always been something I did. I used to stream on Twitch from time to time, especially during the COVID era. I would stream on Twitch with my friends. So I was accustomed to it, right? And so going through there and always kind of being nervous, but I really wanted it bad. I really wanted it bad. And I had my first interview. And I was like, man, I don't know about this. I don't think I'm going to get it, because the interview kind of went that way where you're like, nah, I don't really know if I made an impression on her or not. And then, a month later, you're like, hey, we would like to select you for the second part of it. I'm like, dang, there's more than, one part, but all right. So I'm, doing this while I'm also still in school and also working for the River Dragons as well. I'm also trying to finish up school. I'm taking out the most credit hours that I've ever taken in one semester, just trying to finish by May because I didn't want to stay another semester. I want to say it was near, I think 19.
Oh my god!
Maybe? Yeah. So one was a winter class.
The limit that I usually take is 15, and and 19. Christ, man, wow.
Yeah, so it was one class in the winter, January term. 5 classes during the regular term, and then 2 more classes during the start of summer, which was Maymester. So yeah. No, it was a wild experience for sure. So I was doing all that, and I was still working for the River Dragons, and I doing these interviews for NASCAR, and I'm like, all right, the more rounds I keep going, I'm like, all right, the more it's looking better, and the interview that I had with, I'm drawing a blank on her name, but I had an interview with her probably around April. And I could just kind of see the look in her face of I think I might have this, I don't really prepare for interviews. I kind of just go off the cusp and off the, the beaten path and just go for it, because wing it, basically. Because that's always worked for me. Now, I'm not telling everyone listening to this to go and wing it. Sometimes you need to prepare for stuff. But what works for me is just winging it for an interview. That's where I'm the most natural. Because I feel like the more I prepare for something, the more I will probably mess it up. Because you're always trying to remember, what do I need to say, what do I need to do, and then you just forget it all before it happens. So
I mean, it'd be like that. It's like that sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. So I did the interview with her. I winged it, and I was like, all right, we might have this. And then she's like, yeah, we'd like you to do the interview with the MRN guys, Motor Racing Network. And, I had an interview with Ryan Horn and Chris Schwartz and Alexis Wesselman. And that went well. It was one of those natural things where it's I didn't work there yet, but I feel like I already knew them, and they feel like they already knew me. And I was like, all right, I think I might have this. And then the next day, they're like...
I think you could kind of catch the vibe when you're going through the interview process when for sure you got it. I mean, and it's not that hard to tell either. And this is just advice. This is game here for the OFPs too, or the aspiring OFPs. That you pay real close attention to when you know for sure that. Because a good interview, the way that it can end is if you're just having a conversation. I mean, if you're talking about off-topic stuff that's not even job related, I mean, that's how you know you got it.
I think Chris or Ryan asked me, they're just middle of the interview was who's your favorite NASCAR driver? I was like, Dale Jr. They're like, oh man, I kind of feel bad for you, but in a joking way, And so I was like, this is good chemistry. And next day, I got the email, of you're part of NDIP and you got to get to Charlotte in 2 weeks. And I was like, okay. And I was like, I'm also graduating in a week. So then it was I get the announcement, do finals, graduate from college, and then the next week I'm off to Charlotte. Literally, there was no downtime in between of me even having to break after college. I went straight to Charlotte after I graduated. And that was an experience for me because I've always lived in Georgia, always lived in Columbus. I've been to North Carolina, of course, to Winston-Salem and Fayetteville, but I've never been to Charlotte, right? Always wanted to go as a longtime NASCAR fan. Always wanted to see the Hall of Fame. And dude, like, I'm telling you, man, when we went to orientation and we got to go to the Hall of Fame, dude, I geeked out, man. I was like, oh my God. Like, I've seen this place on TV so many times, and now I'm here. And, like, Richard Petty's car is there, Dale Sr.'s car is there, and it's just like, it was a great experience. For the aspiring people listening to this podcast, man, if you can apply for NDIP, I think applications will still be open by the time this podcast is up.
Yeah, like the deadline for the application for NDIP is January 13th, 2023. So yeah, you still got time. Like New Year,
yeah.
You still have time.
Do it, especially like even if you're not a NASCAR fan, man. It's so cool. And I think that was so good for us was explaining to like the non-NASCAR fans that were there, like why me and you loved the sport for like so long, because like this is cool. Like cars going around close to the wall and stuff like that, and the orientation was great. Everyone there from the NASCAR staff took care of us well.
Yeah, I mean they did a fine job, and when I mean like they did a fine job, I mean words don't do justice how great the because what we did. Like I remember the first day, like all of us came in, we checked into the hotel.
Yeah.
First night we were in Charlotte. Yeah, they took us go-karting, a go-kart track, and then like the day after they took us to go to our 2311 racing shop.
Yeah.
And for those that know, I interned for 2311 Racing the summer before, and they took us around the shop. We got to meet members of the team. We didn't see Bubba, that was one thing. And then or Michael Jordan. And then I remember later that day, that's when they took us to the races. It was the ARCA race where we met where we ran into Raja. And ARCA race, and then it was a truck. I think the truck race was that night too, because it was Friday night.
No, it was so cool because like I was saying earlier, there was a big gap where I didn't go to NASCAR races through high school. So I would say from 2015 to 2021. Same
here. I think the last race I went to before I went to the race in Atlanta 2021 was Sonoma. And that was when I was like 11, so it had to be 2012.
Gotcha.
That was like that long span. Middle school and high school, didn't go to a race.
So like I remember like me and my dad, we were just like, dude, we're just tired of being in the house. We're gonna go to the race in Atlanta, and we were vaccinated, ready to go. We're like, all right, we're going to Atlanta, and that was Atlanta 2021, which is funny because like when I met you guys, like I was like, you guys were also there, the ones that were like the interns, like
Right, because I remember 2011, and I was like, they took us to the race, and we were like in the garage area, and like we're just waiting by the hauler, and I don't remember if I saw you, like because I knew they had in the same, because I knew they had members of NDIP like the class but like before we were in, they were there too, and like they were all huddled around 2011's hauler at that time.
And I was like, that's a coincidence. So that was like the first race I went to since 15, and Kurt and Kyle had a duel there. And then me and my dad, we just made a pledge for this year. We're like, all right, we're going to as many races as we can. This is even before I got accepted to NDIP. We were just like, we're just going to go. So we went to Atlanta in March again, went to Talladega in April, then got into NDIP. So then I got to go to the ARCA at Charlotte Trucks, Xfinity Cup. Dude, when I tell you, like, I was in heaven, man, I was like, maybe you guys saw, I was geeking out, bro. I was like 4 races in 3 days. It was like, this is awesome. Like,
and it was a while since I've had like a NASCAR weekend like that, and those that watch, for those people that keep up with motorsports, these are like weekend shows, and it's like from Thursday to Sunday. You got your low end races, and you got like mid level races with Xfinity Series and the big show on Sunday, and I mean just. And just even like the races aside, like for us to see that and experience it, they've also did a good job in like getting us in the garage, like networking with people that work for the race teams, people that work for like the sanctioning body and corporate partnerships, or just any field of marketing or just race day operations, and just having that experience alone, just the networking. I mean, that's what made the internship really worth it.
Yeah, no, great. Like, yeah, have your LinkedIn open.
Yeah.
As many people as possible that you meet there. Like I say, the scariest moment for me was, man, I met Mike Helton. Like, I think we were in the suite before maybe the Xfinity race or a truck race. He was just there eating a burger. I walked up to him. I was like, "Hey," and he gave me this firm handshake, and I was like, "Oh my God, he's squeezing my hand so much." But like, but it was just awesome, man. Like, that's like when growing up as a NASCAR fan in the mid 2000s, he was the guy, the head on the shoulders of that made the sport where it is today. So meeting him was so cool. Walking through the garages was so cool, man. Like, telling you guys, NDIP is the way to go, and we do all that. I start my first day at MRN. I had a break day where I got to move into University of Charlotte, just dorms. So I lived there the entire summer, and which was very convenient because I was one of the few interns that had to go to Concord instead of downtown Charlotte. And the University of Charlotte is a lot closer to Concord than it is downtown Charlotte.
Oh yeah. I remember I stayed with a host family. This was like summer before. I stayed with a host family that actually lived maybe like probably a mile down the road from Charlotte Motor Speedway.
Yep.
But I had to commute to 2311 shop up in Mooresville, and that was like a half-hour commute, like going from home to the shop and to the shop back home. So yeah, I know how that drive and feels, and it's just. I don't know, like Charlotte's like it could be geographically weird sometimes with like all the cities are dispersed and everything. So, yeah.
No, definitely. So my experience with MRN was great, excellent. Those people are so professional. That's why they're the voice of NASCAR, because they're so like professional, so good at what they do. Ryan Horn, shout out to you, man. Like, he made my time there so great. He let me do like so much. When I came in there, I thought I would be a stereotypical intern. They just let me do some things. He was like, "Yeah, we'll let you run the board sometimes down at the Hall of Fame." And I'm just like, oh, man, getting to work at MRN and Concord is already cool enough, right? But also on the weekends, getting to work inside the NASCAR Hall of Fame while you're watching races, while you're also controlling the radio board, it's just like, this is a dream, man. Like, you look out your window and Dale Earnhardt's car is right there outside the studio, and you're just like, this is nuts. And so they let me do that. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to ask. So as far as what you were doing with MRN, so you were they just specifically had you at their studio at the Hall of Fame. You didn't go to the tracks or anything for
no.
You weren't at the studio in Concord.
So during the week, Tuesdays through Thursdays, I would work in a studio. I would observe them. Like, they do TV shows there with Steve Post, who's their main pit reporter. They have a podcast called Crew Call. They have one, Wing Nation, where they talk about dirt cars. And I know Crew Call is like Steve Post and Todd Gordon, who used to be Joey Logano's crew chief. And Wing Nation is Steve Post with Aaron Abraham. And sometimes Ashley Strimmy would be on too. And those are names that, like, if you're a really deep racing fan, you know who those people are.
Yeah. When you say Ashley Strimmy, is that like Dave Strimmy's daughter or
his wife?
Wife, okay.
Yeah. So I'll look at those shows. I'll see how they do that. They let me write scripts for the news for their podcast, which is NASCAR. I think it's called NASCAR now, but I don't know how I forgot it. But like, I would get to write the news for that. Then they'll let me write the script for the intros for the races that the on-air talent would do for MRN. So I got to write for those guys, and it'd be like, hey, today in the NASCAR Xfinity Series race here on MRN and all that kind of stuff. I got to write a lot of the scripts for that. Me and my colleague, my fellow intern Jackson Kinney. We got to do a lot of that stuff. They'll let me edit some of the races for like podcasts, like they put on their Spotify, do like air checks and stuff like that, and make sure all the ads were played. And it's such a great experience. Living in Charlotte for me was a good experience during the summer. Getting to visit majority of all the race shops that were there. I didn't get a chance to see RPM.
I saw that on your stories when you were out there. And first off, let me just say, for any OFP that lives in North Carolina, lives in Charlotte, I mean, Charlotte's a beautiful city. I mean, love going there all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I saw in your stories that you were like I was almost kind of jealous. Like man, like I mean, you're going to Joe Gibbs Racing, you're going to Junior Motorsports, you're going to Hendrick. I mean, you're trying to hit all the shops for all the teams.
I think the only one I didn't go to was I think RPM, because I think it was in Statesville, and that was just like 2 out the way for me to go to. I mean, I did make the drive all the way up to Welcome to go to RCR, which is still like, even on this computer like I have right here, like my background is like the picture I took of Dale Earnhardt's Oreo car when I was at RCR. And I like always remember that. And so I would like, especially on my off days, I would go to GoPro Motorplex, go race. You know, if you work for NASCAR and you don't race, something is wrong with you. That's what I figured. Everyone who works for NASCAR legitimately races something, whether that's virtual or physical. So, you know, getting the race. I met Cody Ware at GoPro Motorplex, so he's fast driver. I know he gets a lot of flack sometimes, but even the worst NASCAR Cup driver is still faster than a regular human. So, you know, that was all good. And so getting to do all that, going to Charlotte on Tuesdays to look at, what's it called, Summer Shootout. When at the Rising Stars race was pretty cool.
And Legend Cars and Bandoleros, those guys.
Yeah. And then still working with NASCAR. So we did the NDIP. We had a case study, and our case study with my group was like competition side of, you know, the sport. How can we improve it? And we get to talk to a lot of guys who make the rules of NASCAR. We would have like Zoom meetings, talk about rules, point systems, get to pick their brain on why the playoff system is the way it is now, and stuff like that. And I was just like, man, why? You kind of almost get imposter syndrome, right? Where you're like, why am I doing it? Like, why did I get picked to do this? You know? But then you think to yourself, like they told us during orientation, there's like almost 5,000 people that applied, or even more. And, you know, so I feel entirely lucky to that portion of my life. And, I like, you know, shout out to MRN. They wanted to keep me on. But, like, you know, there's just not enough room and stuff like that. And I completely understood. And so after the summer ended, I went back to Georgia for a couple of months to finally have some downtime after graduating college and going to Charlotte and stuff like that. And I'm kind of a competitive person where, like, I had, like, probably 2 weeks of downtime, and I'm like, I have to do something. I'm bored. I have to go do something. Like, I have to, like, go and get another opportunity. So I was chilling at a friend's house one day. I was just on my computer, and I saw the Utah Jazz were hiring. Like, I'm on, like, every site, man. I'm looking, like, at NASCAR teams. I'm looking at, like, NBA teams, NHL teams. Like, who needs a producer? Who needs a broadcast assistant, right? I'm willing to do it. So I'm like looking at that, and I applied to the Jazz, and I jokingly said to my friend, I was like, "There's no way they'll hire somebody from Georgia, because it just doesn't make any like geographical sense, right?" And I was playing some games one night with a buddy, you know, and David Locke, who's the play-by-play radio guy for Utah Jazz, he emailed me. He's like, "Hey man, I really like your resume. I'd like to interview you." And I was like, this is odd. And first of all, the email was like 11:50 at night. And I was like, okay, I'm getting pranked.
So David Locke, play-by-play broadcaster, he does Utah Jazz radio, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so he personally reached out to you to have the interview?
Yeah. Yep.
Wow. Well, I figured it'd be like an HR department or something, but
no, it was him. And at first I thought I was getting pranked, because I was like, that's very late at night, and I'm like, all right, this is kind of odd. And then no, he like reached out to me the next day on like a phone call. He's like, yeah, man, I'm really excited for you to interview. I was like, all right, cool, I'll interview, right? I'll entertain this, you know, because I'm like, this is an NBA team, you know. At the same time, I'm still trying to like look for things like maybe with the Charlotte Hornets or the Atlanta Hawks, you know, somewhere closer to home. But, you know, I was no luck there, right? So I was like, all right, let me entertain this. And I do my interview with David, and he, like, and these are his words, because I'm like, he knows, and he jokes with me like this. I'm kind of like humble and quiet. He's more like very extravagant kind of guy. Exuberant, it might be the right word. And we're doing an interview, and he's like, you're too qualified. So like, no. Let me back up.
You're qualified.
I applied to be a broadcast assistant.
Mm-hmm.
A broadcast assistant for the Jazz. And he looked at my resume. He saw everything I did with NASCAR because he kept asking me about that. He's like, "What all did you did?" I was like, "They let me run the board during, the races. Like I would like click when the commercials needed to be. If yellow flag come out, I would log that in the system." Of course, Craig Moore, who's a sound engineer, he was teaching me all the way through. A great guy, awesome. Everyone at MRN was great, man. But he was teaching me how to do that stuff, run the board and stuff like that, and really prepared me to it gave me a lot of confidence to really do what I'm doing now. And so I would probably be a broadcast assistant, right? And Locke's like, "You're too qualified." And I was like, that's the first time I've ever heard that.
To have somebody say it in person, I mean, that's rare.
Yeah. And he's like, "How would you like to interview for the radio producer role?" And I was like, "Well, slow down, buddy. I don't know if I'm ready for that." But I was like, that's what I was thinking in my head. But my mouth was like, yes, So he's like, "All right, we'll schedule it for next week." And I was like, "All right, cool." And we do the interview next week, and it's with Jeremy Brunner, who's head of production, Travis Henderson, who is the vice president of broadcasting of all the broadcasts for the Utah Jazz. And these guys have won probably a combined 100 Emmys. I sometimes walk into their office sometimes that's on the 5th floor of Vivint Arena, and I'm just like, man, it's a lot of Emmys. It's a lot of gold walking around. So these guys know what they're doing. And I do the interview with them, and I had the same type of interview that I had with MRN, where I kind of had that feeling. I was like, I think I got it. You kind of, like you said, you just kind of know. And then the next day, I'm just doing my regular thing. I get a call from. I actually missed the call first of all because Locke has he's from he used to be a broadcaster in Seattle, so his number is a Seattle number.
Oh wait, for the Sonics?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh wow.
So he's
got to be way way better.
Yeah. So he did the Seattle Storm, and then he did the Sonics, then he did the Jazz.
Okay.
Yeah. So he called me, then I finally answered the second call, and he's like, "All right, you're my guy. You're my producer. All right, we'll see you in a week." And I was like, oh, dang. Now I got to figure out how to move all my stuff to Salt Lake City. Granted.
And I feel like this was actually the part of the interview I was really looking forward to was the move, because Jimmil, you're a Georgia boy, so I would figure the move from Georgia all the way to Utah had to be a culture shock in some way.
Yeah, no, it was tough. So during this whole week, I'm figuring out, what do I need to bring with me? What do I need to leave back at home? And at the same time, I also have tickets to the fall Talladega race.
Oh,
so I'm
a playoff race too.
So I'm like, I'm going to this, man. So I think I had to be in Salt Lake City by October 10th. I think that race was October 3rd, I want to say.
Yeah, they actually pushed it up a year, because I know usually they have Talladega
around Halloween.
A few years ago, they usually have it around Halloween weekend. But they pushed it up a little bit earlier in the month, so it was had
around
to be
October.
a tight fix.
Yeah, so I was like, all right, I'm still going to that. So we went to that, and I put my plane ticket to be, I think, October 5th. So literally, actually no, I think October 6th actually. So I found this apartment, the one I'm staying in now, and the lease opened up on October 8th. So I was like, all right, we're getting it. And me and my dad, we went half and half on the payments you need to get to the apartment. We also went half and half on getting my car shipped out here, because I like my car. I like driving. Of course, I have the steering wheel next to me. Of course, I like driving, so I wanted my car out there with me. I am probably the only one driving around Salt Lake City with a Georgia tag, but that's fine. So I wanted my car with me, so we went half and half on that. I paid for the plane ticket myself, and we went to Talladega, saw Chase Elliott, Georgia boy himself, win that race. Mm-hmm. And then it was on from there. I had one last day on Monday, hanging out with my friends and my buddies. Tuesday, I packed everything I could. I packed a lot of stuff. I had this military grade book bag. I put most of my necessity stuff in there. then everything else I put in my car. So when it got shipped, I was gonna get in my car. I was gonna get it later. So
Right.
I put everything in the book bag. Now this is like a lot of things. Like this shocked David Locke too as well. And a lot of these guys didn't notice, but I'd never been on a plane before.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah, like before that moment, I've never been on a plane. So like, my whole life growing up, yeah, I drove to Charlotte for NDIP.
I remember, you drove up to Charlotte like during orientation weekend. I remember that. Yeah, you were telling me you had all your sim racing stuff in the car with you.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, so like I drove up to Charlotte and like everywhere we went as a family was always like we're down 7 hours to get to, so we just always drove. You know, we never flew anywhere. So like I never had any reason to go, and I also never been on the western part of the United States. I never been past Mississippi or like Memphis. I think as far west as I've been. And as far north as I've been is Winston-Salem, and as south as I've been is whatever's under Orlando, right? So I
Daytona.
Yeah. So I grew up in the southeast and just never left. And I was like, yeah, this is a big adjustment, but like and this is like what Locke told me too. It's the NBA, man. You know, it doesn't really get much better than this. I was like, you're right. And so it's like I'm gonna take this opportunity. We're just gonna go with it, no matter where it takes me. So I get on the plane, Frontier Airlines. First of all, go to the Atlanta Hartsfield Jackson Airport, which is the busiest airport in America. But I went at like 2 a.m., so it was not that busy. Dude, it was scary. I mean, I hugged my dad, and we said our goodbyes and stuff like that. And everything else was just so new to me. Every experience after that was just new. Going through TSA, getting on the plane train that takes you to the different terminals, getting on the plane by myself. Let me tell you, dude, like, I've raced karts before, you know, and stuff like that. I feel like I'm an adrenaline junkie and all that kind of stuff. But when that plane took off, I almost threw up. I mean, like, dude, I was so, like, I looked out the window and saw Atlanta under me. I was like, oh, I'm going to be sick. I'm
sure, like, heights is probably a new thing to you then.
Yeah.
And this is, like, why I have the utmost respect for pilots, because I feel like the two hardest jobs to do in that industry is to take off on a plane and to land that thing.
Land it, yeah.
I mean, that is like I feel like that is the hardest job to do in like any travel or hospitality industry. Like,
exactly. And so I was trying to force myself to go to sleep, basically. So I just wouldn't like any bodily fluid thing would happen to me. So I ended up forcing myself to go to sleep. I would wake up intermittently and just look and just see clouds, or I would just see ground. And I was like, oh my Lord. I'm like, I'm in a plane. You know, like I'm like way up above the sky right now. And so I had a connector flight. So I had to like spend 3 hours in Denver, Colorado, waiting on my next flight to get to Salt Lake, which was fun. Bought a shot glass. Not too interesting, but you know, the plane ride from Denver to Salt Lake was a lot easier for me than the one from Atlanta to Denver. I can tell you that.
Yeah,
I guess
like,
I was
like one state over. So, you know,
yeah, exactly. So I get to Salt Lake, and David Locke, he picks me up in his car, and first he drives me around like everywhere in Salt Lake. He's like, here's this, here's that, here's the mall, here's the arena.
The Mormon temples.
Yeah, the Mormon temple.
I've driven through Salt Lake once, so yeah, I kind of got a feel for the city a little bit.
Yeah. This is an odd one. I would say that it's compared to like things in the southeast that I'm used to. It's odd, especially like the roads here are all like numbered, which people here say is easy, but to me is like, oh no, it's not. This is kind of weird, man. You know, you kind of got to explain your address twice to people, like, to make sure they're not on the wrong side of town. But, like, no, David was good. His hospitality was really good. We went up through the mountains and stuff like that, and he drove me up there. Yeah, because he lives up in the mountains, so we went up there, and we had dinner together, and then the next day was game on.
Wait, like at his house, or?
No, it was a bar up in Park City.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know about Park City. That's like where Post Malone and them live. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was like, it was a bar up there, which like I never seen anything like a place like that either. You know, there ain't that many mountains down in Georgia besides Stone Mountain, so you know, it's incredible to see all the different types of mountains and stuff like that. So, you know, all that stuff was cool. And then, like I said, it was game on after that. The next day, I'm at the basketball arena. They're giving me my badge. They're giving me this computer that I'm talking to you on. And then we have orientation. They're telling me everything I need to do. I met with a previous producer who left to go do something, I think, on the East Coast, and he just explained to me some things. And I'll tell you, man, that first preseason game that I got to do, it was scary because, like, I don't know, Locke knows this too, and everyone knows. It kind of like threw me into like a fire almost, or like they threw me into the water and swim basically. And I think I succeeded on that pretty well. We have a little tagline in our productions where it says the NBA is nonstop, and that is definitely the case. It is nonstop. We have a game tomorrow and a game the next day, and it's definitely nonstop, man. But it's cool. Like it's a different environment from like what I was used to for racing, but it's still cool. Like to see these guys who are at the top level, what they do, and they get to be a part of it. You know, get to be a part of the team, get to wear the logo, get to do all that, man. And so I think that's the best part of me. Like I was saying earlier, I'm a competitive guy. The competitive nature of me really fuels why I'm here now. And it's to be a part of a team. You know what I mean? Be the best production of all of us. TV and radio, we work really close together, which I think is a great thing. At our team, we work really close together. And, you know, being part of a team is just trying to be the best broadcast we can be. And, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you've had like a journey, man. I mean, just storybook worthy. And, you know, just from the start, like, you know, starting out in NASCAR, and then, you know, you like go to college and you work with a minor league hockey team in the South, and then, you know, you live out your like pretty much your dream of working in NASCAR, and now you're working in the NBA. It's like, you know, highest level in basketball in the world right now. And you know, it's just like that experience alone, and just the stories that you're able to tell. I mean, this is really what it's all about. This is how it is when you're like an off-field player. It's just, you know, you live these experiences. You almost can't believe it's surreal, especially when you grow up having that mindset of, you know, say you wanted to be a professional athlete or you wanted to be a NASCAR driver, and you just weren't really sure of how you were going to get there, if you were even going to get there at all. But when you have that moment where you feel like you're coming close to that dream, and just by being in the industry, I mean, that really is just, you know, like I guess the experience worth alone, just the story worth alone. But, you know, I kind of want to touch a little bit more on your work with the Jazz, and you know, and you don't have to, you know, say everything about it, because I know, you know, they like teams that keep stuff on the low sometimes. But
we all have,
you know,
secrets under our sleeves.
Right. So, how has it been, you know, just adjusting to being in Salt Lake City and, you know, working in the NBA, just knowing like how the schedule is, and really also what you do behind the scenes as far as radio?
So I would start off with the schedule. The schedule was tough. The Jazz, for the first, I think, 25 games of the season, had the toughest NBA schedule of all 30 teams. And it definitely showed. I mean, we had back-to-back games after back-to-back after back-to-back. And I was like, man, I really threw myself in the fire this time. It's like, you know, Friday, you know, I get there around like 2 o'clock, 2:30ish. I'm there probably around to like 11:30. If we have a late game, like Golden State for last night, I didn't get home until probably like 1 a.m. You know, this is how it is with the West Coast games. So I'm there a while, and then like they have to like do it the next day. Oh, it's a slog. It's but like I guess the work in the NBA part kind of makes it worth it, because like they selected you for a reason, you know what I mean? And that's what keeps you going, you know what I mean? Even when you're just like, dude, I kind of need a break right? But at the same time, everyone here and the Jazz staff are very supportive. Where like if I did go to them and said like, "Hey man, I might need a game off," they'd be like, "All right, we can facilitate that," you know.
And
so
gonna work you to death. So
exactly. Yeah, so they're pretty diplomatic about all of that. You know, but the schedule's tough. Schedule is tough, but like we've also played, I think, like 5 more games than any other team. So like at least it'll end early. I think that's how it works. They end earlier than most. So like we're on game at the time it's recording. We're on game next is 38 and 39 Friday and Saturday. Then we have like then we have a break in between for New Year's and stuff like that. So that'd be great. But so adjusting to Utah, that's an adjustment. You know, we see like guys like Donovan Mitchell talk about it a lot, and it's no hidden fact. There's not a lot of melanated people who live in the state. You know, so and especially the juxtaposition of like coming from the southeast, where if you're in a major city, you're gonna see a lot of people who look like you.
Right.
Salt Lake's kind of the first place I've been where like it hasn't been that, but like at the same time, knock on wood, I haven't experienced any like bad from that. You know, so everything's been good. Everything's been positive, I say. Especially within the Jazz sphere, they want to change the culture of that team. Ryan Smith, who's the owner now, he's the new owner. Dwayne Wade's part of the ownership as well. They're trying to change the culture of the team. They're trying to bring newer faces in. They're trying to bring people who aren't from this area to kind of like build it up to what they think other franchises are beating them at, you know. So, you know, I think they do a pretty good job of that in terms of that. But yeah, no, moving to Salt Lake is, you know, it's different. You know what I mean? It's different. The big churches all around, you know, I'm not the most religious person in the world, but I respect all of them. But like, it's different, but not bad. You know, I think people get like too attached to where they're from, and they want to call other places bad. It's not bad. It's just different. You know, and I'm still getting used to it to this day, living out west. Having In-N-Out burgers instead of Cookout, you know, like, those kind of things are different, but you know, we're still getting used to it. And yeah, like you're saying, behind the scenes, a lot of the stuff we do is very similar to what I did at NASCAR. A lot of scripts that you hear David Locke say at the beginning of the broadcast, I write for him. Well, it's like we kind of write them together. It's kind of like I used to do this at NASCAR. I used to tell the guys, I was like, if you want to spruce it up, go ahead. You know, I am very comfortable myself where I'm not going to be offended if you change what I wrote. Don't care. You know, I'm pretty matter of fact of that way where it's like, I'm not going to be like, oh man, he didn't say what, no, it's okay. He's a professional play-by-play guy. He can say what he wants, but majority of the time Locke does say majority of what I've written on the script, and he'll go from there. You know, so I'm the executive producer of Jazz Game Night, which is like the whole broadcast. So we're talking pregame from 6 to 7 Mountain Time with Jake Scott and Tim Lacombe. We have Jazz Game Night, which is the actual game with David Locke and Ron Boone, and halftime show also with Jake and Tim, post-game show with Jake and Tim as well. So it's at the end of the night, because I record a whole broadcast. It's around almost 5 hours or 4 hours of a broadcast from the start to the end. And, you know, we're running production pieces. We run pieces about the player. Our broadcast is probably the closest radio broadcast you can get to a TV broadcast. So we run a lot of production of, you know, talking about the players, talking about the coaches. So really, one of my ideas going in was when I got the job, I thought Quinn Snyder was still the coach of Utah Jazz. He's not. It's Will Hardy, and I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know who he was, to be honest. So my idea to David and our staff was like, we got to really push Will Hardy this year because we have a new team. A lot of our guys got traded and stuff like that. So all of our new players Will Hardy. We got to push those guys to get our fan base to actually know who these people are.
I'm still shocked by the Donovan Mitchell trade. I was like, when I first saw that, I was like, man, I almost couldn't believe it. It was just like, man, is this fake? Like,
yeah, no, and it happened pretty late too. Like, cause I think we still have, like, if you go on like fanatics.com, you can still buy our new jerseys with Donovan Mitchell's name on it. So it happened pretty late, all things considered. So, but Jazz game night has run smooth. We run a lot of sound bites. Locke really likes to tell the story of our players, even the other team's players, and then we can facilitate that as much as possible we can by having our player interviews, player press conferences, coaches press conferences. We run it all, and so it's like when I go and watch ESPN now, like I was watching ESPN on Christmas Day, and I look at their broadcast, and I'm like, our broadcast is a lot like that, except you just can't see anything because it's on radio. Right. So it's a lot like that, but our TV guys do a great job. Craig Bowlerjack, who's the play-by-play guy for TV, Thurl Bailey, and those guys, they do their thing. AT&T Sportsnet, great group of people, and that's all you really want in life is like people who like support you, and like literally Locke is like, hey man, like the first week I had the job, he's like, hit me with any, he's like, let's do a broadcast from last year and hit me with any ideas you have. I hit him with like a list of like 20. He's like, whoa, dude. He's like, no producer's ever hit me with this many changes, but he's like, all right, let's do it. Let's go for it. And I was like, man, and they weren't like bad changes. Like the show wasn't bad before. It's just like I wanted to spruce it up a little bit. I wanted to, what I learned at NASCAR and some of the ideas I had, even with stuff like we did with River Dragons, I was like, there's some things we can add here.
Brought your own spice.
Yeah. And like even before I jumped on with you, like I said, I was on a phone call with Travis Henderson. Me and him are always brainstorming new things that we can do to make this broadcast better. So, it's a constant competition. It's a constant grind. Like I posted on my Instagram story a couple of days ago, like with game 36. I'm like, that would have been the end of a NASCAR season, and we still got like 40 more games to go. So. We're starting season 2, like already.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, just that consistency that helps with it. But I feel like with consistency in a job comes consistency in the work that you're putting out. So yeah, it's definitely something to keep in mind. And Jimmil, like what, as far as something you've learned as like with the jobs you've had in the sports industry, what is, like what would you say is one thing that you were able to take on or able just to learn by networking with people, doing the interviews, and even coming up with 20 ideas for David Locke, and just throw out the example there.
That people want to hear your voice. People want to hear your opinion. Like I was saying, like you get imposter syndrome sometimes when you're in these positions with guys like David Locke or guys like Craig Bowlerjack who have worked for like CBS or stuff like that, and they've been in this business 30 years. Then they look at you and be like, "What do you think?" And they don't want to hear what you think they want to hear. They want to hear what you actually think, And I'm pretty, some would say blunt, or blunt. Some would say blunt about like what I actually think. If I kind of say what it is, and people appreciate that, so I would tell people just don't be an a-hole though. Don't like. There's a line, right? So like you have to kind of like know that limit, but then you also have to like still like be assertive and be like, all right, some of these things have to change. This is why. This is what I would like to do, and then people are receptive to that. So just keep going with that. I want to say.
Yeah, definitely. And then Jimmil, like as far as what you experienced in the sports industry, working with the Jazz and, working NASCAR, minor league hockey, what is something that you personally, and this could be like anything you want, like what is something that you would change about the sports industry overall? Like problems or anything that needs to be improved on, like how to hire people or just anything in that regard?
I would say, and this was kind of like a thing with, minor league stuff. You got to pay your people, something. Like, don't get me wrong, I appreciate everything Ignite Sports and those guys did for me. And, but like, there's a lot of times where, like, at least when I was part of River Dragons, I felt like we should have got paid a little bit more than what we did because we did a lot. And I'm talking about everybody, even Zach, who like got a salary, who was the play-by-play guy. He got a salary from them. I felt like he should have been paid more because the things he was doing, I was like, dude, I mean, like you're like Superman doing all this stuff, man. Like running his own commercials, running the board himself, running the TV broadcast himself. I'm just like, man, wherever they're paying you, they should double it, right? So paying your employees, I would say. It depends on the internship, but like I think NASCAR did a good job of that. But like you can't compare, like that's what I was saying. You can't compare like minor league stuff to like NASCAR. NASCAR's a big corporation; they can afford to pay interns, right?
Right.
But I would say I think Ignite could have, had some leadway to pay us more than what they did. But I would say that I think that has to change. I'm trying to think what like NASCAR. I don't really. NASCAR wasn't perfect. Don't get me wrong. I'm not gonna try to fanboy too much. They weren't perfect, but like they didn't really do anything that's egregious. Like I think we got paid a fair wage for what we did. Now, I would say. Okay, the thing with NASCAR, I would say, and I won't get into too much detail with this, but like, if you're gonna have interns do something for you, right? I think, there should be a little bit more incentive to, why we're doing this. Like, if you're working a job and you don't feel like doing something, and you give it to your person under you, you should probably not pay them extra, but like give them something more to reason like, why do I have to do your work for you? So, and this is more of an announcement.
Just for the task that you're given to have value in it.
Yes,
or
and
some sort of value up in it.
Yeah, and that's like just with NASCAR in general, because of course like MRN and NASCAR are kind of separated, but they're also the same. MRN, those guys are perfect. And they're great. But on the NASCAR side of things, I would say, especially the corporate side of NASCAR, I would say some things is like, especially with that case study we did, I was just like, I don't know. There's some things that rubbed me the wrong way, even though like our group won it. We didn't really get much notoriety or notification or like anything on. We did get something that we won, but we didn't get like notoriety about it, to the point where it's like, why did we kind of like, a person like me, I wanted to be fully focused, 100% focused on MRN during the summer. But then I had to deviate that focus to work on the case study. So I expected a little bit kind of more fanfare for at least the winners, of the case study.
Yeah, you just want like the credibility of it.
Yeah.
And just also like trying to figure out like what, and like did they take the idea and run with it, or like how they execute and what was the aftermath?
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. It's just kind of like we came up with these ideas. What are you gonna do with it? And if you are gonna do something with it, are we gonna get credited for it? So that's one of those things I still don't know. But
I mean, address man, like there's. I've done things in an internship that I felt would have brought value to some, and I'm still trying to figure out to this day if it's still being used or not. And I guess when you're early on in the career, that's one thing you kind of just have to it's like my mom always taught me about jobs that build character. Character building jobs, and at times you kind of just have to. Take it for what it is. You just have to do the work and, not be like, like dwell so much on how did it turn out, or like, oh, what was like, where did it go afterwards? And, I think but that's just something that we learn in life too.
No, exactly.
We can't just,
That's why I don't stress over it now.
Yeah.
Like, just take it on the chin and be like, all right, they used my idea. I'd be like, hey, I came up with that, and just keep going, and I'm not gonna go sue them or anything. Like,
let it be a flex for yourself. Just don't be too prideful and being like, oh man, like why they take that and not have a name on it. But just as long as you know that you did the work and you did the research and you put the time in, I mean, that's something that no one can take away from you, and that's something that you can put on your resume, that you did this, and you don't have to try to prove yourself and try and do this. As long as you did it and you put the time in to be able to produce it and put it out there, I mean, that's really all you could take it for.
Yeah, no, exactly. So I think like I said, besides like that part, NASCAR, I think they, as a corporation, because that's the one thing you realize, like when you go to work for these, even the Jazz, right? Even though like these are like independent teams, these is still a corporation. You got sponsors. I have to deal with sponsors, like literally with what we need to do for our broadcast and stuff like that, and different partners and people coming that want to be on the show to advertise something and stuff like that. So you got to deal with that. These are much more, and I think that's the big thing I would tell people. These are much more corporations than you think they are. And that's not a bad thing. You just got to be kind of ready for that. You got to kind of be ready to be in a position of where you're with a lot of high-level people, and, you might be like, dang, I don't really belong here, but, like, you're there for a reason. So, like, just, keep pushing, and, you deserve to be there, and, but just be used to, like, these are high-level, big money-making corporations, especially when you start making your way up. And they do things differently, than a lower level. So you just gotta be ready for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And Jimmil, like just we're close to wrapping up here, but I do want to leave off with this question, and this is for all the aspiring off-field players that will come across this episode and hear your story and just hear your experiences. But what advice can you give to someone that's an aspiring off-field player and wants to get their start in the sports industry and just to have a fruitful career in doing so?
Go for it. Just do it. Don't want to take a tagline from Nike, but, it's like, I don't know. I think it all starts from, like, the top, and, I had good parents that, like, told me, like, nothing's impossible. So, that has always been my mindset, nothing is impossible. So, you would have told me I would have been a producer for the Jazz a year ago. I would have said you're crazy. I've been like, there's no way, like me living in Utah, no way, brother. I'm not, that's not happening. But, the impossible becomes possible. And, it's interesting where life takes you if you let it just ride the ride, you know what I mean? And not really try to, do too much. It's just go for it. I never thought I'd work in NASCAR. Never thought I'd see any of those race shops in person or even have the opportunity, right? And so to be able to do all that, to be able, like, this year has been like literally like the impossible became possible. And then like that fuels you though. Like that, then you're like, man, what can I do next? Like now, I'm not thinking about leaving the Jazz anytime soon, but it's just like you kind of just get thinking, like, even with this team, how can I move up and how can I do all that? You just start thinking to yourself, like, nothing's really impossible.
You build an attachment.
Yeah. So you just gotta go for it. Nothing's impossible. No matter what those Reddit trolls or Facebook people or Twitter people try to tell you. When you're like, oh man, I want to get into the sport, but I feel like I'm too old. Like I follow like r/karting on Reddit, and you guys be like, I'm 25, I'm trying to get into karting, and people be like, man, you're too old. It's like, no, you're not. There's like junior level karting for people like who are in their mid-20s who are just doing it as, social events, or just a little competition. Like it's never too late. Now it might be a little bit too late for you to get into Formula One as a driver, but like, There's always ways, and don't listen to the naysayers.
don't listen to the naysayers. I mean, yeah, that's the biggest one right there, man. Just going for it too. I mean, like I think a goal for everybody in 2023 as we go into it. Well, by the time you listen to this, it'll already be 2023. But just trying to go for it for sure. And Jimmil, like you're living proof of that. I mean, you did something that you thought you weren't going to be able to do. I mean, moving from Georgia to Utah, like working in NASCAR, like traveling like all over all over like the Eastern Seaboard with a minor league hockey team. I mean, that's just you did it because you were just like I'm just going to do it. So I feel like that's what that's like probably the most the best advice somebody you could give to somebody that's trying to get into this industry that we're trying to get into.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, there you have it, folks. Jimmil Hawkins. I mean, thank you, man. It's been a pleasure for you to come on the podcast, come on the Off-Field Players podcast, and you being an off-field player yourself. I mean, you're killing it, man. And I wish you the best of luck, and sure all the listeners are gonna wish you the best of luck as well. And if you could leave like your contact information so people can reach out to you if they want to find out more about you or just like follow you somewhere.
Yeah, my Twitter's J_Hawkins28. That's where you see most of my posts about mostly what I do. We post a lot of jazz stuff, a lot of stuff we do on our broadcast on there. So you guys can follow that at J_Hawkins28. And it's been great. It's been great to be on the podcast. And if you can find a way to listen to Utah Jazz game night. Every other night, there's an NBA game, so it's on. We're on, so you guys can listen to that. So yeah.
All right, awesome, man. Well, yeah, we're rooting for you. Wish you the best of luck for 2023 rest of the way, and yeah, just keep going, man. But yeah, there you have it, folks. Jimmil Hawkins on the Off-Field Players podcast. Want to thank you all again for tuning in, listening. If you listened all the way to the end, I really appreciate it, and I'm always gonna be here as I will. See you on the next one. But yeah, this has been Jimmil Hawkins. I've been your host, Philip Hall, and I want to wish everybody a happy new year once again. Best of luck for 2023. More episodes are going to be on the way. More informational interviews like this are going to be on the way as well. So make sure to stay on the lookout. But yeah, with that, I'm signing off, and just a reminder to always achieve what you believe.